It is a pretty rough matchup. Now, we've watched Toni already overcome this matchup against Andrea Mengucci previously. However, Matt Nass has also overcome the matchup on his end. So it is favored for Matt overall, but both players have overcome in the past.
Sure. All right. Well, let's find out what happens. One of these players is going to remain undefeated. I'm going to send it on over to the booth for round number 7.
Thank you, Maria. Welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Ether Drift Martial Cyclist with Paul Cheon. And we're getting our way through day number 1 here, Paul. Just a couple of rounds to go. But these are big, important rounds, especially for these players who are in the feature match area right now. They're both sitting at 6-0. Perfect start to the day. And I figure you have to start kind of thinking about, oh, what if I could, 8-0 coming out of day 1, like that put me in a good position. But don't get too far ahead of yourselves here. Domain Overlords versus Esper Pixie is going to decide who's still undefeated after this round. Paul, who do you like?
I think just generally speaking, if you just asked a bunch of the players, they all kind of favor Domain Overlords. But again, it's not by a significant amount. I would say it's maybe 5% edge. And depending on how you build your Esper Pixie deck, maybe you can change that 1 or 2% edge as well. You see Toni Portolan playing cards like double Spell Pierce in the main, where if your game plan is curve out aggressively, keep up Spell Pierce just to make it so that your Domain opponent can't cast Day of Judgment on time, that might be enough to kind of put it over the edge.
All right, looks like we are underway here.
This is a matchup we're going to see a lot of over the course of this weekend. Obviously the top 3 decks being Esper Pixie Domain and the Gruul Mouse deck here. Matt winning the die roll, huge. Just not having to worry about being on the back foot. And Toni this time does not have that Hopeful Nightmare that we saw deal 20 damage or something like that against Andrea Mengucci.
That thing basically went the distance.
Oh, actually did, but keeping up Spell Pierce for a potential turn 2 up the Beanstalk from Matt Nass. And now choosing to play the turn 2 Storm Chaser's Talent to put a little bit of pressure instead of choosing to run out the Hopeless Nightmare immediately. Now you can still run out the Nightmare and you pump up your Prowess token as well, so you can get in for 4 points of damage this turn.
Cards 4. 5.
5 cards in hand for Matt. Played a couple of tap lands early. Liked what he saw.
Yeah, Matt's still at 20 life, has plenty of good options here, has Ride's End to potentially even. I wouldn't be shocked if Matt just decides to fire it off on the Otter. The Otter can just, the damage can pile up out of nowhere with that card.
If he does want to do that, it would be now.
Take 1.
Yeah, especially now that the Otter's attacking for 2. Although interestingly, Matt is the one at the higher life total. So if you, for example, runs out of Beza next turn, you won't actually gain any life.
That's funny.
Excuse me, both sides are at 18 here. So wouldn't be able to gain the life. Does Matt Nass have something you can... Oh, discarding, excuse me.
He's going to take the 2 here as well, so...
Yeah, this makes sense. You just take the 2, play the base, and just go back up to 20.
Right.
Then Toni deciding, do I need to add more to the board here? Do I just hope you don't have Day of Judgment and just run out Fear of Isolation just to add more pressure to the battlefield?
And the answer is yes. And interestingly, has a choice on what to pick up. Going to go with Hopeless Nightmare.
Now, Beza got even better here, right?
Oh, there was Day of Judgment, by the way.
Oh, wow. So a lot of great options here. If you run out the Beza, you get 2 tokens here.
I have 3.
And you gain 4
so
life.
Draw.
Wow, and a card.
Oh, my goodness.
Gain 4, because to 20, and I get 2 fish.
It was like cruel ultimatum.
Beza has just been unbelievable so far in the games that we've seen it.
It has. Now Toni has to work through all of these speed bumps, and then his reward for finally doing so is going to be Day of Judgment.
Right. Now he does have the Spell Pierce. He does have the Spell Pierce, so Matt Nass does need to be mindful of that. And and try to play it around it to the best of his ability. But the only pressure that Toni has right now is just the 2-3 flyer. And Matt can also attack back for a decent chunk of damage with that Beza. Also found an Overlord of the Mistmores. So if you want to play around Spell Pierce, you just Overlord of the Mistmores instead of run something out like a Day of Judgment.
That is a stacked hand from Matt Nass. Look at that.
Cards. 3.
Backup Wrath as he's discarded the Day of Judgment, so Sunfall remains in hand, and then, well, the combo.
Yeah, the combo, although unclear if he's got the black mana for the Zur just yet, but does have the ability for Overlord of the Mistmores, plus if he just finds a land, he can run out the Sunfall. And actually discarding Day of Judgment and choosing to keep Sunfall.
Right?
Yeah.
16.
Interesting, because if you want to play around Spell Pierce, it's a little bit better to try to keep the Day of Judgment in your hand, because it's harder to pull that off with the Sunfall. But for the time being...
that did look like a black source. Shadowy Backstreet off the top. Did you see how he slow rolled too? He's like...
Yeah. It's a tap black source, but still has a perfectly fine play here of just running out Overlord of the Mistmores and just racing. I mean, Tony's attacking for 10, Matt's getting in for 4, and also putting a pair of 2/1 flyers in play this turn.
I mean, these are the best type of decks, right? The ones that have a good baseline but can do kind of broken-y stuff when the cards come together if left uninterrupted. The real clincher for these type of decks as well are if your opponent is forced to respect that you may do something and feels compelled to leave up mana or bring in stuff out of the sideboard. When you can just do this, you're just like, here.
And here's the issue with the Spell Pierce. You can't counter the Overlords. They're all creatures when you cast them.
So you take
Sure,
one,
so Tony's going to go ahead and...
And the insect dies, and Nightmare's back in your hand. Sure.
bounce
Okay.
one of the flyers from with this town ain't big enough plus
Yeah.
Does he have a second cup?
to get both cards out of hand.
Oh, Kaito. That was a pretty strong draw. If you can get that one to connect. It does look like possibly a second copy of This Town Ain't Big Enough, so you could possibly use that to bounce talent, get the flyer out of the way, maybe even get Kaito in.
He's going to test the waters here and see if Matt Nass feels like chump blocking to not get Kaito.
No 14.
Wait, all right, no Kaito.
16? 16, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
awkward timing,
So
but
take
it'll
3
work.
down to 13.
Okay.
That'll work.
Yep, gets in, and then now what do? Do you just tap down a Beza? Do you can look to find some cards here. You can emblem, get it up to 5. The Otter can chump block the Beza, and it won't necessarily die next turn with what's in play right now.
But it'll go down to 1.
And no, Toni doesn't have a This Town Ain't Big Enough, it looks like. So,
Okay.
if Matt decides to go for Zur, it will work, right? You can just play the Zur, activate your Overlord of the Mistmores, get in, gain a ton of life, and it's going to be tough. I mean, Matt doesn't need, and if Toni just chooses to go for the Hopeless Nightmare plan, you just discard your Sunfall. You have a better board at this point.
Okay.
You always have to feel good when your opponent surveils both cards into the graveyard.
That's
just
right.
a totally random card there. And yeah, nowhere to run. One of the worst cards in the matchup here. Oh, and the coast is
And now
clear.
this is tapped out Toni Portolan.
Right.
13. E13, U12.
Trying to set up
Oh,
for next
man.
turn
Yeah, this is going to
with
be a
fear of
huge-
isolation, but now Matt Nass has the green light. He's known as a combo player. This isn't exactly what we mean
kind
when
of a
we say
combo.
that, but it works.
I think that was a temporary lockdown. I mean, you just go for the Zur. You just gain so much life. You have such a huge board. You get 2 flyers.
That's the problem,
just-
is that even if this doesn't last for more than 1 turn, the life swing is so huge.
Yeah, this is absurd.
Toni gives a nod of resignation there.
And Beza and the Overlord can get in here.
And then there's Trigger. Oh!
Getting spicy here. Maybe just attack with everything. I mean, you will go up to, what, 20 here?
Yeah.
And you have 3 blockers. You're not really in danger of diving.
There's also, are there any Kaito attacks?
Right, because if you don't care about actually
Right.
winning, you're just going to win with this board, right?
I'll
So maybe just go for a Kaito.
Yeah, it's not like Portolan has a way to.
Do you go
get
both
rid
at
of
I'll do
Kaito then?
both at Kaito.
Yeah.
Trigger.
So then Toni has to block with both, just chump block here to keep the Kaito alive. And then he's just left with Kaito versus all of this.
All of that. And Kaito
Yeah.
doesn't really do that much. One activation of Kaito is not going to get the job done.
Yeah.
So Tony's
So
just going to let him
7-7.
go.
Oh, it's
Right.
7-7 now.
Yeah.
sorry.
So back up to 20.
Go ahead.
With 3 2-1s and 2 fish, there's just
Yeah,
nothing Toni can
and
draw
Tony
here.
just doesn't have the tools to get out of
No,
this.
absolutely
cards?
not.
He's supposed to be ahead.
Right.
Just
at
information's
18.
sake. I mean, you know the deck list, but why not?
Sunfall.
Yeah.
Sunfall not looking
That
great
would not
for
be
Matt
ideal
Nass on
here.
this board.
Yeah, maybe just pick up the
Go to 11.
Nightmare here too. Get some extra cards here, but
And you have to
Matt
pick
just
something
doesn't
up,
need
right?
anything other than what he has in play right now. Toni doesn't have a way to kill the Overlord here.
Choose his card.
Could even temporary lockdown here. You lose all your tokens,
to
but
combat.
Toni loses the 2 through 3s and the otter.
And you just get him with the big things.
Yeah,
It is actually lethal.
right. Now, Toni could, of course, have
There's
discounting
something.
big enough or something.
Yeah, just something
Yeah.
stupid where you're like, why did I do that? You have an absolutely dominant board position
Right.
here.
Shrinking the Beza
something
here.
Nowhere to
7-7.
run.
Yeah, you're just moving in the wrong direction here. I get you can turn to
Yeah,
Beza.
that's
Well, that's a
Beza
7-7.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Turns off hexproof, of course.
Yeah,
in
you
order to
can
run.
still target.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 2-4, and then the trigger.
I'll,
Okay.
Right. So it's a
I'll
it's a
kill all your
4/4,
stuff, you go to
and you can
7,
kill a Fear of
go to
Isolation. Still hit
25.
for 4. And Matt
It only
still
costs you
gains
your whole
4 life.
board state.
Right. And Matt still gains
Um,
4 life off of that exchange.
Right.
I'll play a Surveil land. I'll keep it on top.
Oh,
GG.
right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah. Tony says, I know my list, and there's nothing left in here. So we're going to go to game number 2, Matt Nass, with a convincing victory. He kind of got to do all the things. Not only did he get to activate Zur, but he also just was casting, you know, the stuff at full price.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this domain deck. You don't need the Zur to win, but if it ever goes off, you just win on
Oh,
the
sorry.
spot.
Just went on the spot. That once that thing got activated, this game was done.
Right.
It looks like they're just underway here with 7 cards in hand each. This is Matt Nass playing for 7-0 at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, Matt Nass qualifying for the Pro Tour through the limited event at the World Championship, actually top baiting the 100K limited event. And then
Is that the one that Paul Rietzl won?
I believe that's the one, yeah.
Man, that's a nasty top 8.
It was a pretty insane top 8 for sure. Little delayed optimistic scavenger due to the restless anchorage from Toni Portolan.
Some polite magic being played here. Tap, tap, tap lands, tap lands.
Yeah, but if you play that game plan, you have to put the huge advantage towards the domain player.
Right.
No enchantments either here, just 1.
Yikes. How is that possible?
Oh, geez.
What?
Are we just picking up
Nurturing Pixie just to...
just a 2/2
and
flyer?
can't even replay it?
Right, yeah.
What?
The mana is being a little bit awkward here.
Oh, this... I mean, this is a little early, but this feels like desperation already from Tony.
Yeah, it certainly buys Matt Nass a lot of time. So if his hand is remotely reasonable, you have to like his chances here, because I feel like Tony's best option, quick start, burn you out with Hopeless Nightmare. We saw him actually use that as a way to defeat Andrea Mengucci, but right now we're just looking at a 2/2, and Matt Nass has an Elspeth Smite in hand to get that off the battlefield. And take a look at his hand. He's playing, by the way,
Formation.
yeah, his list, the Channel Fireball list, 3 obstinate ballots in the sideboard.
Oh.
So if you want to kind of go nuts with the Hopeless Nightmare strategy, then Matt Nass can turn the clock around and have a big 4-4 in play. And then Toni has that interesting position where you go, do I even keep the Hopeless Nightmares? It's one of the best cards in the matchup, but when they're bringing in the ballots, what do you do?
Totally.
Right?
I mean, they become actively bad for you somehow.
Right. Or you have to kind of wait before you play. You don't just play it out turn 1, because you just lose if you play it turn 1, and your opponent just gets a free 4-4.
Right. And if that's the case, I would have a hard time keeping those in.
Wow, no attack. Toni playing around Ride's End, possibly even Elspeth's Smite here.
He's protecting his 2/2 flyer.
He is.
Maybe hoping to strand some mana on Matt Nass's side. Is he just going to pop hatch formation it?
I'll destroy a flyer.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So it's destroyed, right? Destroy target creature with 5.
He has, this town ain't big enough. He can just pick up his flyer plus Storm Chaser's talent. You can pick up 2 things. This town ain't big enough, there's just so many options, infinite options. If you have a bunch of things on your side, you can pick up multiple things on your side. But Matt just has to utilize his mana and just fire off and just eat through whatever tricks Toni might have. So just had no option there other than to run that out.
That was a good play from Toni not to attack. It forced
Yeah.
Matt to do a little bit of a subpar action there.
Yeah, and Matt's hand really isn't particularly strong. It's got a bunch of lands and a handful of removal spells, but none of the heavy hitters, none of the Overlords, the Zur, up the Beanstalk. Those are some of the most important cards in this matchup.
Yeah, in game 1, we saw the big hitters come down for him, and his hand was stacked up. It was all sweepers and bombs.
Right.
Now it's like, you know, sideboard
Counter
cards.
on the Otter.
Yeah. So the Otter is a 3/3. Oh, excuse me. He just played it this turn, so it's just.
Okay, so now Tony's
Yeah,
going to
got it,
attack
got
with
it, got it.
both.
Right.
Oh, I suppose just
Okay. It's a nice, cheap, efficient removal spell there.
Yeah, that worked nicely. But wait, there's more.
Does have a Leyline Binding.
I'll take 3 with this.
Okay. Choosing to hold the Binding. Can cast it for 2 mana.
Okay.
All right, well, Toni is doing the bounce thing. And now, I mean, Toni has a bunch of mana, and if he runs out of action, you can always just level up the Storm Chaser's talent, put some extra pressure.
That scavenger should be exiled there, but I guess it doesn't matter.
Oh, with the Elspeth Smite, right.
Maybe those are both exiled?
I don't know how you would exile the
Yeah.
this town ain't big enough.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think it is. I think it's just they forgot.
A good draw here from Matt Nass. Really big draw. Overlord of the
Jeez.
Mistborn.
We were just talking about how this hand just was kind of lacking the big hitter
Right.
bombs, and then he found the biggest hitter bomb he has.
Yeah, just uncounterable, puts 2 things in play. Although, hey, Tony's following it up with a great play of his own. Top decked Kaito Bane of Nightmares here.
Can he get that going right now?
Well, Matt's not going to want to block the 3/3 Otter, probably.
Right.
So Toni can potentially just attack with both of his creatures, with just one of them. Okay.
No box.
Matt says no blocks. That's a committal.
Well, picking up a 3/3 at the same time, like you can just have Matt take 3 and then just, you could just hard
And
cast
just
Kaito.
cast the thing.
But you also have to be mindful of a potential Zur in Matt's hand. You have to
Oh.
respect that, right? So I think Toni wants to keep up Go for the Throat and Destroy Evil here.
See, this is exactly what I was just talking about, right? The combo threat.
Right.
Like, Matt doesn't even have it.
He doesn't.
And Toni would have been much better to just like continue to develop his board, but he just feels he would lose on the spot effectively if Zur plus a land came
Yeah,
down.
absolutely. He could have just run out the Kaito if he knew Matt's hand.
Right. But these type of decks will operate just fine without it, but they just threaten the win.
I think it's time to just hard cast the Bailoff.
Take your medicine.
All right. It's still fine.
It's
4/4.
still okay.
It blocks the Otters pretty well.
Obstinate Bala still going strong.
It is. And bouncing that thing doesn't really accomplish too much, but Go for the Throat certainly does. And choosing to not actually play it on his own turn because that would have pumped the otters.
My card. 3.
Yeah.
Because he has the Kaito and Destroy Evil still.
Okay, Tony's going to get aggressive here. Attack with all 3 creatures. Matt Nass still at 17.
He's like, all right, what can you have? What can you have?
Force the issue.
Now, Tony can use Destroy Evil to kill the Overlord of the Mistmores, which would then pump the Otter, and would mean that basically his entire board lives, and you can get in for a little bit of extra damage and not have to worry about a potential Zur off the top.
That's got to be tempting from Tony. I mean, you can tell that he's very, very aware.
Right. Which is why Matt's even considering blocking the 1/1 Otter, because then if Tony goes the Destroy Evil, the 2/1 still trades with the 1/1 Otter.
Right.
Yeah. Heads up. Ooh.
I'll do like this.
All right, it's Kaito time.
Does have to pick up an otter to do it. And in that case means it's gone forever.
Sure.
Yeah, but you do get good value here. Kaito, of course, hexproof on Tony's turn, so Matt Nass cannot fire off the Leyline Binding here until his own turn.
This is right.
So the boards effectively trade off, but when the dust settles,
And he's going to be
there's a
digging here.
Kaito.
Yeah, he's digging. That's a Storm Chaser's talent.
Yeah, and a land. He doesn't want it.
Okay.
He'd rather have a random card.
Cards. 3.
And still keeping up that Destroy Evil, so he can't lose on the spot to a Zur. If Matt Nass plays Zur, you can actually just kill the Overlord of the Mistmores in response, right? Because it would have hexproof. Now, Matt Nass does have the answer here. Has multiple Leyline Bindings here. So he can go Leyline Binding, Tony goes Destroy Evil, and then you just go Leyline Binding again.
Right.
Target. Kaito.
It's going to target Kaito. And Tony says, okay.
Go ahead.
And then passes the turn back.
But he has no clock here, so do you just run it out end of turn here? He sure does. And I think
Destroy Evil, but here's the question.
Right.
Does Matt respond and
You
just
have
do it
to.
again? Yes,
You have
he
to.
does. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
want to give him priority with Planeswalker. So this is good news for Matt Nass.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
there's
stable again.
There's an Overlord coming in next
card.
turn.
Yeah. That's the only relevant permanent currently.
Did find a Hopeless Nightmare to strip the last card
Oh,
out
so
of
he
Matt's
does still
hand.
have it.
Still has it, yeah.
But he successfully waited to draw it until the Obstinate Bailout
Right.
was hard cast. So he's good there.
Now he does have a Destroy Evil in the graveyard, so you can upgrade level 2 Storm Chaser's talent to get the Destroy Evil back to deal with that Overlord of the Mistmores. And I imagine that's something you're really interested in, because that is
14.
the only threat on Matt's side of the battlefield.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the biggest threat.
Right.
So yeah, let's take care of that problem. And he missed.
I connected, right? Something from the...
Yeah, let me double check, but I think so. Right, if armor reveals their hand, you choose an artifact or creature, then choose an
And
artifact
then
or
you
creature
get one from their
exile.
graveyard
Yeah.
too.
Does it?
Yes.
Does Matt have any recursion?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, get back Destroy Evil is my guess. Yep. Now, if Matt just top decks a Zur here or something, that would just be ridiculous.
That's a cruel joke if he
Right.
does that.
Is that a Zur?
What? Come on, Paul.
What? No way.
What's your deal, man?
No way. Come on,
And he
Matt
can actually
Nass.
activate
With
both
the
of them,
Leyline
too. Oh.
And this is after casting Dreams of Steel and Oil. Oh my gosh.
You'd think Matt Nass is a nice guy.
Jake,
Unbelievable.
13, 27 to 7.
What? That's unreal.
Oh,
Tony played this game really well,
Take
too.
13, I make 2 flyers.
Oh my gosh.
Come on.
Now what? It's like the enchantments have
Oh.
hexproof. He did find both Destroy Evils. You gotta kill the Zur first, and then you kill the Overlord, but you're still dealing with the 6/6 and 2/1 flyers.
Literally lethal.
I think that's just the game. What a rip from Matt Nass.
I don't know if you caught it, but Tony just had a head shake there, just like, God, not that one.
That was
Anything
the
but that
perfect
one.
I mean, of course, Matt has a lot of great draws, but that was just the best one.
It's your fault, Paul.
I
After
guess I
curse on
guess
that
I
one.
did call it.
Is there
Sorry, you
anything
want the
Toni can
underground
do?
or
We've
Jeff?
seen
Okay.
consistently that this
No.
deck just doesn't have the tools to come back.
It's good at dealing with things one for one, but when there's this much pressure in play and you're this far behind, there just isn't.
Okay.
Okay, you get the Kaito, and then I suppose you
and
can
then
freeze the
lock down
Overlord.
the Overlord.
Okay.
So I think.
But then the Kaito still dies.
Right, but you lose one of your
They lose
your
one.
spirits. Okay,
Yeah,
that was
you
a
know
good
what?
turn.
You know what?
That was a good turn.
Maybe Matt needs a little more.
Well, the Overlord comes back in a couple of turns here. Like, Tony's still not out of it here, right?
Man.
And Matt just drew, oh my gosh, that's an Analyze the Pollen.
Seriously?
And he has enough to just get whatever creature he wants here.
So lose one, but trade off for Kaito.
Do you just get,
And,
do you just get
Tony's
another?
just like, sure.
Yeah, what do you get? You just get another Overlord here? Can you just hardcast one?
6 mana.
Just seems like it's hard to just beat an army of Overlords, right? Yeah.
I don't
like,
think anybody's ever beaten an army of Overlord,
Right.
especially Mistmores.
back to back. He went Zur into Tutor for Overlord.
And he did have the 7 mana, not 6. So,
Right.
Welp.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good turn from Toni to try to get back into it. But now
I'm at 7, right?
You 7, me 27.
you have to deal with the Overlord plus the other Overlord.
Well,
Maybe you can make him discard it.
He
Okay.
did. He dealt with it. He actually dealt with it.
Right.
But the leftovers
But they're
are
still
going to take over.
Right, the Overlord has only 1 stun counter on it. That one's live next turn.
What's the life?
Me 25.
You were at 20. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was just at 27 and took 2.
Yeah,
Can
and
use
Matt
that.
probably won't attack here unless he finds an
Yeah,
answer
strong case.
for the Fear of Isolation. And certainly Tony's not attacking.
Go ahead.
I will say, Toni just doing everything in his
Fighter.
power here,
Fighter.
right? Dealing with that Overlord, but still has an uphill battle to climb here. Now remember, Storm Chaser's talent is in play, so he can just go get more things. He needs to find, he can go find another way to kill this Overlord. So Matt might need to top deck another thing to close the deal. Oh my gosh. But Toni needs a land to be able to get
He just
Destroy-
passed the turn.
to be able to get the Destroy Evil back and recast it. Needs 6 mana, right? Oh, he was so happy about that.
Got
land.
it, too.
Okay, so now, I mean, he's dealt with all the Overlords, and now there's only 3/2/1 flyers.
This is really impressive from Toni.
Wow. Okay.
Matt Nass has a land in hand.
This is incredible.
No blocks. Sure.
Just kills that right away.
Couple and kill
Sure.
that.
Go.
Matt still has
Just
lots of
proud
great
of Trigger.
draws. Oh,
That was up the
Beanstalk.
beanstalk. Okay, that could be the start of a beautiful
Oh,
thing here
man.
for Matt Nass.
Another one?
Uh-oh, chain him.
So just
Chain 'em.
anything big now, you just
Yeah.
draw 2 cards.
Any binding.
And he's at 23.
Yes.
Still has such a huge advantage.
And it
here.
was
Day of Judgment.
Day of Judgment. Attack with everything, Day of Judgment, draw 2? No, it doesn't work like that. You got to have 5-ball, right?
It's not even clear that you fire off this Day of Judgment.
think you do.
I think you just hope that Toni runs out another creature and then run it out.
That becomes your backup plan
Right.
at some point, but
But now all Matt just needs is just anything that costs 5 or more. Ride's End,
Okay.
Leyline Binding, any of the Overlords. If Toni doesn't draw anything, probably goes to the max level here on Storm Chaser's talent. Draws a land here. Could potentially surveil with Hopeless Nightmare too. Still a cheeky attack. Can't block
Blockage.
the flyer. Okay.
Sure.
All right.
this is precarious still,
When you
though,
play
for
a
Toni.
non-creature or just
One
instant or
removal
sorcery,
spell.
Instant
Right.
sorcery, you got Otter.
Yeah.
Ride's End if it's around.
Leyline Binding. Oh, it's a land. Okay. So Matt is whiffing, but it's just
He's got
inevitable
so much
here.
time, though.
Right. And he still has 3 blockers. If Toni strings together a couple of spells in a row, Matt has the Day of Judgment here. Got the upkeep surveil.
Scry.
Does he find a spell? Oh, excuse me, scry.
Verify your matches are being recorded in melee. If you're having any trouble, please come to see our
There is a Restless Anchorage in play as well. Okay, a 1-drop. Okay. Now you have, did Toni play a discounting big enough this game?
Yeah.
Because if he does, now he has that mana sink engine where he can just start bouncing tokens and then bouncing his Storm Chaser's talent, and then you also get otters out of the deal too. So if Matt whiffs for a couple of more turns, it's crazy to say, but it's possible Toni could potentially come back here.
Don't even say it. Is it true?
Okay, Matt Nass did find Get Lost. Probably, ooh, this is interesting. You can either kill Storm Chaser's talent or the 2/3 and gets Toni down to 1.
Kill the 2/3.
Storm Chaser's talent is also really scary here.
He's going to shut off the engine?
Yeah.
Okay.
But this does give Toni a lot of extra looks with the map tokens. But Matt has to think, look, if the game just keeps going on, I just need anything that costs 5 mana, and I'm just going to run away with this.
That's right. He's totally right.
Pro Tour players, Jim Davis, Ray Zhang, Alex Friedrichsen, Justin Chin.
Okay, looks like a 1-drop here. Oh, we got the map, of course.
Please verify your match before the game.
Probably putting that in the graveyard.
Same.
He's even putting him in the graveyard, yeah. I like that.
Oh, the map token.
Yeah.
Couple lands here for Toni, so not ideal. Really needed to find some action this turn.
Okay.
Okay, get
He's
an extra
trying.
map here. Now, if Matt Nass wants to kill the anchorage, you do need to double block, triple block, sure.
Sure.
Take 2 blade. No spells, right?
Yeah, 2 damage. Matt's still at a pretty healthy 18 here. But
Yeah.
Toni has a reasonable board here. 3 creatures and that map token, gonna use it again.
Okay.
Targeting the big one.
Churning through this library.
Another land.
Caves. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they got through those cards
Right.
at least.
Big turn. What is that? Another
of the beanstalk.
Another beanstalk. Wow, just anything big here now.
Dude.
That's not big enough, but it's still a fine card on this board. That's a Beza. So Matt's going to be able to, I guess, just make 2 tokens, right? Because he's got the life advantage here. But Silk just gives you plenty of blockers.
Day of Judgment.
Okay.
Day of Judgment.
Play a land. I'll play Visa.
Just playing a
I
4/5.
Go.
And a card.
Right, because just play the last card out of the hand.
Okay.
Okay, that's not good for Toni.
Yeah, that's exactly why Matt wants this game to continue.
Oh, he's got a
going.
ley
It's
line
just another-
binding.
It's a ley line binding and a land, but
Yeah.
the binding's such a blowout here.
1 mana, draw. Wait, I guess he doesn't have a. It might be 2 mana.
It's
2 mana, draw 3
2
cards,
mana
kill
and
something.
Stressful Recall
Yeah.
plus Swords to Plowshares. How do you like that?
And this is just going to be game over at this point.
Yeah, there's no way that
It's just
Tony's
so hard
going to
to
be able
miss.
to come back. This is what Matt was playing towards this whole second half of the game.
Right. Oh, he can just. Oh, there's an Overlord of the Mistmores too. Geez, you also have Zur. You
Yeah.
can just animate all your beanstalks and just try to go for the win this turn.
That is lethal if you get 2 of them up. And
Yeah.
that's going to do it. Matt Nass improves to 7-0 with a hard-fought victory over Toni Portolan. Wow, Toni made that very interesting. Like, that was way closer than you'd think.
I mean, there were multiple turns, especially after Matt played the Zur. You're like, okay, well, it's just over.
Yes.
And Toni finds a way to kind of stay back in it. You're like, oh, Matt needs to draw something. Matt draws something, and you're like, okay, well, it's over. And then Toni just continued to find ways to deal with 3 Overlords and put himself in a position where if he could have top decked a little bit, he could have actually gotten there, which was really, really impressive. But of course, if you just talk about which decks have better late game, which deck has better top deck powers, nothing's going to beat the Domain deck in the late game.
No, and we saw why, especially with Up the Beanstalk sitting there waiting. Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we have more standard action. Dawson Courson versus Yuchen Lu. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to coverage here of Pro Tour Ether Drift. I'm Marshall Cycliffe with Paul Cheon. We are in Chicago, Illinois. Yes, there's a MagicCon happening just outside of our broadcast booth. Thousands of Magic players congregating here in Chicago for good games and good times. For us over here, though, we're on the hyper-competitive end of the spectrum over here. We've got the Pro Tour going on, and we've actually got 2 undefeated players sitting down here, just like we had in the last round. This is going to be Yuchen Liu playing Gruul Mice, facing off against Dawson Courson on Esper Pixie. You mentioned it before, big 3 decks in Standard. We're going to be seeing these two, and then the deck that Matt Nass is playing as well, facing off a lot. How does this one play out on average?
Again, small margins, but I think kind of coming into this, if you're the Gruul Mice deck, you kind of want to be playing against the various bounce decks. Esper Pixie or Dimir, the Gruul Mouse deck wants to play against Domain, but in this particular matchup, the Esper Pixie deck is slightly favored because it has so many cheap interactive spells, right? Nowhere to Run, and a variety of other removal spells that you can bring in out of the sideboard.
As you can see, we're joining our 2 competitors here in game number 3. They've split the first 2 games, and we're going to get a decider now to see who's going to remain undefeated. We know that Matt Nass is undefeated, and then one of these players will be as well. They have a chance to play against Matt in the last round here in day number 1, but there will be another undefeated player as well. So
right,
we've got a pretty big field this time around.
Yeah. 350 players or roughly something along those lines.
The last few PTs weren't quite this big, so there's more undefeated players a little later into the day.
Both players with reasonable 1-drops here. It looks like Yuchen did mulligan here. Nowhere to Run, turn 2. Excellent curvier from Dawson. Getting in for 2, killing the pesky mouse.
Yeah, the Heartfire Hero is going to go down straight away. Who's the aggressor now? What is the follow-up here for Liu Yuchen?
Emberheart Challenger, I believe, was off the top here for Yuchen, so that would just be a nice way to just continue applying some pressure here. I can't imagine on turn 2 the Gruul Mouse deck just going Challenger go, right? It's going to turn sideways. It basically enters the battlefield tapped.
It never, ever was untapped.
Right. But Dawson finding that Nowhere to Run, so if he does have a cheap way to bounce the Nowhere to Run, that's huge, but can also just have a really explosive, aggressive start. These otters can get gigantic. Oh, wow.
And this is going to really slow things down now. Dawson Courson.
Just look at the number of permanents in play on turn 3.
They're also cheap. They all cost 1 or 2.
Exactly, and this is why you play this deck. You can just keep up with the explosive curves from the Gruul Mouse deck. Yeah, being on the draw, down a card with the Esper deck with this kind of a draw, it is so tough. Okay, now Paw Patch Recruit, very, very good card in the matchup here. Dawson going to rely on a lot of spot removal effects, but when you use a spot removal effect, you can distribute some counters to pump your other creatures, which just makes it super annoying to play against.
Let's see if Dawson can continue to grind down the board state of Yuchen Liu.
Dawson does have the life advantage here. Just curious, Dawson, just if you can find anything to just pick up one of those enchantments. This town ain't big enough, right? You can use this town ain't big enough to bounce the token. Then you can bounce the Nowhere to Run or Momentum Breaker to kill the other creature. That would work.
I'm sure.
Oh, gee, yeah, this is just the ideal.
Oh, and he actually has it.
He does have it, and this is just the absolute ideal start here for Dawson here as the Esper Pixie player. Now, does Dawson have land number 4 here is the question. Untap land number 4, and that would be pretty tough.
As it turns out, no. So there is a window here for Yuchen Liu to try to build up a board that'll get around that Momentum Breaker.
Yeah, Yuchen really wants to at least put another creature in play. If Dawson has a removal spell, at least a targeted removal spell, you can distribute a +1/+1 counter elsewhere. I see a Lithomantic Barrage, which, you know, the Optimistic Scavenger is a nice target for that, just to make sure that the +1/+1 counters don't get out of hand. There's a Questing Druid, I believe, as well in Yuchen's hand, but that's the type of card you kind of want to fire off at the end of your opponent's turn, just to make sure that you can get the value off that card. But doesn't really have any other great plays outside of that, so this is kind of putting Yuchen in a very tough spot. Dawson just has kind of everything going here. Yeah, might just have to desperation run this out and just try to hit a couple of spells you can cast this turn.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a Burst Lightning.
Okay, good start.
Certainly can use that to kill off the Optimistic Scavenger. Did he play a land this turn? I think he might have.
I think so.
Probably didn't decide on the Questing Druid play until kind of a little too late, and now it might not be able to play the land.
14.
Yep, just killing everything.
But was not able to add another creature to the battlefield here, so
Momentum Breaker is going to get the 4/3.
going to be nasty.
Jeez, this is just so much here.
Relentless from
Dawson just has 3 mana sinks in play too, if he does end up finding land number 4.
Go ahead.
No chill from Dawson Courson. And remember, this is game 3. So if Yuchen Lu's not able to develop something very quickly and get some forward momentum, it is going to be Dawson who remains undefeated.
That might be a Sentinel. All right, it is a Sentinel.
That has to be one of the bigger threats he can have.
Right, so now if Dawson doesn't actually have a removal spell, then you know, that thing kind of just gets in the way of everything.
Yeah. Does Dawson have it all this game, or is it finally going to be a proper speed bump?
That? Shoot the Sheriff. Oh, wow.
Shoot the Sheriff.
Okay, getting in for 4 as well.
8.
We're at max speed now, I believe. Or I don't know if Dawson may have missed it.
You do have to remember that
Right.
part. You're not allowed to forget the initial,
Yeah.
but it's an optional. I mean, it's viewed as an optional trigger.
Okay, found actually the best land to hit, right?
Yes.
You do have a 3/3 now that can block, but Yuchen just kind of out of gas, and Dawson with 2 Otters, 3 Storm Chaser's Talon, and you draw land number 4, you can just get more removal spells back to the graveyard.
Churning through it. Just infinite to do. I mean, it's hard to imagine a bad draw now for Dawson, right?
Yeah, and
Nurturing Pixie, that's even better.
Nurturing Pixie here. You play another thing, you pump your Otters, you force Yuchen to sacrifice either the Sanctuary. Oh no, excuse me, bounce to nowhere to run, so you can just kill either the Questing Druid or the Sanctuary.
Yeah, Dawson's just going to sit on it.
Yeah.
If you want to dump 4 mana in and have me kill your land, then great.
Oh, and saving it here, it goes, if you want to end up turn sacrifice, you can just kill that too.
Jeez. He says,
All right, just let it resolve, okay. Now you leave yourself a little bit vulnerable to a potential Monstrous Rage.
Right.
Okay. There's a Rockface Village, I believe, too, and I think he top-decked Emberheart Challenger, so you can get a little bit of value here. You can target your Challenger, try to hit an extra spell. So even if Dawson has a removal spell for this.
And we're going to see a response, though. Dawson keeping his options open at a little bit of risk.
Right.
May pay off here.
So do you want to kill? Okay, just
yeah,
killing the
he's going to take the potential long-term threat rather
Oh,
than
it's a discount ain't big enough, actually. He had a discount ain't big enough.
So he has both.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow, lots of options then for Dawson.
Great hit, though, for Yuchen. A Torch to Tower. Helps you stay alive. You can kill the Pixie or the Otter, depending on which one you feel is a little more threatening. Pixie has flying, so it's kind of tempting to kill that, but okay, killing the Otter.
Get in for 3 down to 11.
Yeah.
Yuchen Lu trying to find some way.
Putting up a decent fight here, but down to 7 already.
Notable that Dawson still hasn't even hit land number 4. There it is.
There it is. And remember, still has Storm Chaser's talent plus nowhere to run in hand.
That's right. So there's the talent.
I imagine the flyer gets in. I wonder here if you just run out your removal spell right away. Nope, being patient once again.
I guess you do also maintain a prowess trigger here by waiting.
Yeah, oh, Yuchen with another Emberheart Challenger.
Really?
Look at how this deck's able to just grind, even when it feels like you have absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, gonna hit another card here. Oh, wow.
It kind of just keeps going.
Yeah.
Could comment.
Attack with both.
This has to draw out the removal spell now, right?
Yeah, there's the Questing Druid. So the Emberheart Challenger is effectively a 4/3.
Sure. 4 damage. Sure. Trigger prowess.
Okay.
Oh, targeting the Sanctuary. So now you can fire off that Questing Druid. You can tap the Sanctuary plus a land. Okay.
And
Can you...
try to find some way to interact here.
Is there like a Monstrous Rage or something still left in Yuchen's deck? I'm not sure if he keeps it in after sideboard. Lithomantic Barrage. Okay, can fire that off on the Pixie.
Damage, take 4. I'm at 7.
He's been fighting the good fight here.
Really has been.
Might kill the Otter. Killed the Otter last time.
Yeah, but now look at that life total dropping.
Right.
Yeah, you see,
This is just far closer than I thought it was going to be
Way
based off of
closer.
Dawson's start.
yeah, the Rockface Village plus the Emberhearts off the top have been doing work for Yuchen Lu. And Dawson finally just hit land number 4 last turn, but it was a tap land. It was Concealed Courtyard.
Right.
So that's also been kind of holding it up a little bit, but I would have thought this was over.
So Yuchen effectively at 3 here. But Yuchen does have the Rockface Village. I don't think there's any creature lands in play, but that at least turns the Emberheart Challenger into 3/2, plus you get a redraw. Now remember, Dawson does have Momentum Breaker. That's gain 4 life. So that also
Right.
affects the race here as well. Now you're at 3. He just played a Restless Anchorage. That is technically a lethal attack next turn.
It is. And it's going to be very difficult to get in for 7 here, especially through the Momentum Breaker. That's going to make it impossible.
What are we looking at here? Maybe like a Manifold Mouse to give it double strike. And then if you have maybe some other way to pump this, that might have been an Innkeeper's Talent in hand as well.
It's not enough, though.
Right. Or you could just find a
Well,
removal
depending
spell.
on what you find.
Right.
Yeah.
You could. So far, Yuchen's just been revealing shocks off the top with the
Yeah, kill a
Emberheart
Pixie,
Challenger.
and that's no longer lethal.
All right, here we go. Oh, and if you have Innkeeper's Talent, you don't need to Rockface Village. Right. You can just play the Innkeeper's Talent, unless you want to try to get in for more damage.
That saves you a lot of mana.
Right. Yep, and it triggers prowess as well. So that's 4 damage. Rockface Village is 5 damage.
Yep.
But Dawson's effectively at 11.
Effectively at 11 here. So there's just no way you kill them. So what you really are looking for here is a removal spell for the Nurturing Pixie.
Yeah, that's because that saves you from lethal.
Exactly.
Yuchen Lu is fighting.
And then now it's like, should I have killed a flyer? Right? That's something you could have been considering because like
Because
if
he
I
did
killed
choose to kill the Otter.
Right, because if I killed a flyer and you hit ground creatures off of this, you could have lived and just played ground creatures. So we got a prowess trigger here. Emberheart Challenger currently sitting as a 3/3. And this is big. Yuchen needs to find a removal spell here to stay alive and join Matt Nass as the undefeated player. And I think that's
And he
probably
missed.
it, unless Dawson doesn't go for it next
Right, if Dawson talks himself into not going for it for some reason, I expect to see Dawson proactively use the Momentum Breaker. You don't want to get yourself into a situation where you take damage and then
Yeah, I don't think Dawson has any cards in hand, right? So the only play here is to just sack Momentum Breaker in game 4.
That's it.
Yep.
It's just a matter of when.
Game
And the answer is now.
Yeah, a nice little upgrade. You know, previously the Esper Pixie decks used to play Tithing Blade. Now you have a Tithing Blade that gains you life.
It adds up.
Right.
Pro Tour players, please verify that your matches are being recorded in Melee.
Wrestling Druid. Pump this up, but two lands. If Dawson just attacks and goes for it, he's going to join Matt Nass as one of 3 undefeated players so far.
Yeah, 1 card in hand here for
Going for
Yuchen
it.
Liu, and he's just going to fire it up. This is the play. And that is undefeated 7-0 for Dawson. Courson winning a narrow victory there over Liu Yuchen. Very hard fought. That was one of those ones where, you know, if I'm in Dawson's seat, I think I'm on cruise control. I got this thing. And then you go, uh-oh.
Yeah,
Like,
Dawson just
is
had
this falling apart?
Yeah, Dawson had kind of like the perfect hand for this type of matchup. Your opponent mulliganed. You have a million things to play. You have plenty of interaction, and somehow it was close.
Yes, very close.
Right? And that just shows the kind of the resiliency of the Gruul Mouse deck.
Yeah.
It is never out of it. It is an aggressive deck that can still grind you out and win turns 12, 13, 14 of a match, which you don't usually see in aggressive decks, which I think makes this one of the best aggressive decks we've seen in quite some time.
It is. It is extremely resilient, extremely consistent, and extremely fast. It just wasn't quite enough this time. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be back at the news desk setting up for our last round here from Chicago. Don't go anywhere.